During my unforgettable birthday celebration, my granddaughter revealed a touching note: "Don't ever forget where you came from." Those words struck me like a thunderclap, sending ripples through my heart and mind. It was a simple sentence, yet it held the weight of my entire life: the sacrifices made, the love given, and the dreams forged in the heat of family bonds. I looked around the cramped diner, where familiar faces of family and friends filled every booth, their laughter echoing like sweet music. The aroma of garlic and butter swirled together, mingling with the deep-rooted sense of belonging that enveloped me. As Lily, with her small, delicate hands, presented me with the homemade cake, I felt a rush of gratitude. Each candle flickering on top was a reminder of the warmth and love we'd shared over the years. I could hardly believe I was turning 72. Time had sped past, each day a seasoning to the rich recipe of my life. But as she handed me the note, I studied her face, nervous, yet eager. She yearned for more, a different future that seemed miles away from the small-town diner that had cradled so many of my memories. Suddenly, the room's laughter softened, turning into a quiet stillness. Lily's eyes shimmered with unshed tears, and I could sense the weight of her aspirations pressing on my heart. She wanted to escape our modest way of life, darting toward higher horizons, prestigious college dreams. But in that moment, all I could see was the legacy we were building together in the diner, a safe haven filled with history and hard work. What if gentrification stole our livelihoods? What if she flew away, forgetting that the roots we shared, the Main Street charm that defined our lives, could be washed away? The air grew thick with tension as I voiced my fears during a frank discussion. "Lily," I said, my voice gravelly and low, "the diner is more than just a business. It's our heartbeat. How can you turn your back on this?" Her response hit like a bolt of lightning: "But Granddad, I can't be held back by the past. I want to strive for something greater." The mix of our dreams created a rift strained with unspoken emotions. Each of us felt unheard, frustrated by the distance forming between our ambitions. How could we reconcile our intertwined paths when we were standing on opposite sides? I could sense a storm brewing in our hearts, and nothing could calm it. Before we continued, "I need to let you know about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, hit that bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can drop a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, let me know in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen." Now let's continue. As the fragile dynamics of our celebration unfolded, the community brought forth an unexpected crisis. A town hall meeting was called, addressing the gentrification threatening our beloved diner. Faces that had once been shadows in my periphery gathered at our door. The diner became the reluctant epicenter of discussions over the future of the town. It was my heart laid bare before the community. What started as a grappling fear morphed into an unexpected source of unity. I was nervous to speak up, afraid I would stumble over my words, but as fellow veterans and neighbors shared their stories, my heart surged with recognition. Maybe, just maybe, we could partner together, forging connections stronger than our rivaling aspirations. But as the meeting gathered steam, an even bigger announcement loomed: a threat that had the power to sever the very threads of our unity. Did we have enough strength to bridge the divide before it was too late? As those thoughts crystallized, I dared to hope that maybe, just maybe, Lily and I could find some common ground in the storm ahead. The meeting had transformed into a hotbed of emotions. Voices rose and fell like the rhythm of a heartbeat, the fabric of our community woven together with threads of shared history. I could feel the tension in the air as people voiced their opinions. The issue felt like a hungry beast, gnawing away at our hopes. "Change is coming," a man named Jerry said, his hands gesturing animatedly. "And it isn't the kind we can ignore. They want to drive us out. But we have to stay strong." I nodded along, my own heart racing as I realized the weight of those words. Each face in the room mirrored the fear that gnawed at my own spirit. I caught Lily's eye across the room, her brow furrowed with concern, yet there was also a glimmer of defiance. She saw it, too. The threat felt like a cloud looming over our diner, casting shadows on our dreams. As the minutes passed, a sense of urgency hung like a thick fog. People began to share their personal connections to the diner, how memories were formed there, celebrations held over pie and coffee, sorrows eased among familiar faces. The stories flowed, and with them, the realization that this place was more than just a diner. It was our home. Finally, it was my turn to speak. I felt paralyzed for a moment, confidence dipping away as I gripped the edge of the table. As I rose to my feet, I met Lily's gaze again. This time, her encouragement stoked a fire within me. I cleared my throat. I've spent more time behind this counter than I can count, I started, my voice shaky but gaining strength with each word. I saw my parents working here, building a life brick by brick. Every plate served, every smile shared has built this diner into what it is today. The words spilled out like memories longing to be remembered. We are not just here to serve meals. We're serving love, history, and most importantly, each other. A hushed silence fell over the crowd. I sensed their attentiveness, their hearts softening. It was now or never. I understand that dreams are calling us, our children want more. But if we lose our roots, who will we become? I looked directly at Lily. What will be left for the next generation? There was no mistaking it, my words hung like a fragile thread, ready to snap. Just when I thought I'd lost them, Lily stepped forward. "Granddad," she said, her voice surprisingly steady, "I don't want to turn my back on what we built. I just want to find a way for both of us to keep this place alive while I pursue my dreams." Her heartfelt words cracked the tension like a firework exploding against the night sky. The community held its breath. Could it be? A bridge between past and future was forming right there, at that table that and the chatter that followed, I could see heads nodding, hands clasping together. We were not just standing against the threat of change, we were embracing the possibility of adapting. The diner could become a nexus, a place where stories could collide and flourish. But as plans began to take shape, another voice from the back disrupted our solidarity. "You can't save what's doomed to change." It was Nick, the developer intent on buying the diner. The urgency in his tone hung heavy in the air, stirring the restless undercurrents of uncertainty that I glanced back at Lily, and my heart raced at the thought of what this truly meant. Could our tight embrace of community go up against one man's vision of progress? Would we allow ourselves to be swept away in the tides of fate, or would we stand our ground? With the storm brewing both inside and outside the diner, the path forward was still clouded. I realized then that the fight was just beginning, and our resolve would be tested like never before. Could we find a way to reconcile our dreams, or would aspirations tear us apart? The atmosphere thickened with the weight of Nick's words. I could feel tension coursing like electricity through the crowd, each pair of eyes darting around the room, desperate for a leader, a voice of reason. With a glance towards Lily, I saw in her eyes a mixture of determination and fear. We were at a critical crossroads. "Change is not always bad," Nick continued, leaning forward slightly, as if trying to win the room over with his charisma. "You can't romanticize what this diner used to be. Forward thinking is essential." A low murmur rippled through the crowd. Some faces expressed anger while others looked contemplative. I could practically hear the mental gears turning as the weight of uncertainty settled heavily on our hearts. The thought of losing the diner felt like a punch to the gut. Lily stepped back into the fold, her voice cutting through the noise. "But we aren't just a business. This diner is home, filled with memories, dreams, and love. You're talking about turning it into a corporate chain. A place without soul." I watched as her words landed and the resolve among the crowd grew sturdier. It was as if a spark had reignited a flame. Someone in the back shouted, "We don't want to lose our identity." Another added, "What good is progress if we lose who we are?" A chorus of agreement erupted, voices rising in passionate defiance. For a moment, I felt the weight of hope lift my spirits. It was evident, our community wasn't ready to let go. Nick's expression shifted. Confident at first, he was beginning to look frustrated, almost cornered. "You can't ignore the future. What will you do when the new freeway comes in and bypasses this place? Wake up. You're living in the past. Maybe it's time to fight for what we believe in," shouted Jerry, his face flushed with emotion. The room erupted in a mix of cheers, claps, and murmured agreements, the fiery passion building like a wave about to crash. Lily moved back to my side, her hand clutching mine tightly. "Granddad, what if we don't have to be either or? What if we could adapt while still holding on to our roots?" I nodded slowly, contemplating her words. Could there be a way to integrate new ideas without sacrificing who we were? My mind raced with possibilities. Perhaps it wasn't about fighting the change but embracing it on our own terms. As the night wore on, ideas began to flow freely, a community working together to plot a course. What if we introduced a new menu based on modern tastes while still keeping the diner's essence? Maybe we could create events that showcased local artists and farmers while selling our classic dishes. Each suggestion ignited kernels of hope, pushing us forward, but Nick's voice cut through again, sharper this time. "You're all dreaming if you think you can hold back progress. I'll be back." The words hung heavy, a silent threat lingering in the air. As he left, I felt a heaviness in my own heart. Was our resolve enough? Lily's fingers squeezed mine. "We'll figure it out, right?" "Right," I replied, but inside, uncertainty tightened its grip. I looked around at our community, their faces a mix of hope, determination, and fear. We needed a plan, we needed unity. As we left the diner that night, I could hear the murmur of conversations slipping through the doors like whispers on the wind. Each person carrying the weight of our future. How would we stand up against the impending storm? Would our community's love be enough to weather the changes approaching? The road ahead was fraught with challenges, but one thing was certain: we were going to fight. As I closed the diner door behind me, I felt my heart racing. We were just getting started. What if we could find a way to transform not only the diner but our very community? What if our resilience sparked a change not just for us, but for others too? But in that moment, I couldn't shake the feeling that we were standing at the edge of something monumental. Only time would reveal if we would soar or be swept away. The following day brought with it a heavy gray sky, mirroring the uncertainty that weighed on my heart. The diner stood quiet, a familiar sanctuary now feeling more like an anxious battleground. I arrived early, preparing for the sweep of conversation that was bound to fill the space. As I stepped inside, the smell of fresh coffee greeted me, but this time it felt different. Each pot I brewed seemed to whisper memories of laughter and warmth that had once enveloped these walls. I poured a cup and watched the steam curl into the air, hoping that warmth could seep into my bones too. Lily arrived shortly after, her usual bright smile dimmed by the shadows of our recent encounter with Nick. She approached me, worry etched on her young face. "Granddad, have you thought any more about what we said last night? About not just fighting but also finding a way to integrate?" I nodded, though inwardly I wrestled with doubt. "I want to. I really do. But how do we turn our ideals into actual plans? It all feels overwhelming." She crossed her arms and leaned against the counter. "Well, let us start small. We could gather ideas from regulars. What do they love most about the diner?" A flicker of hope ignited inside me. Yes. Each plate has a story. We can have them share their memories here, what the place has meant to them. It could be like an oral history project. Exactly. And then we could create a night dedicated to those stories, she suggested, enthusiasm brightening her tone. We could call it Diner Diaries or something. The thought of community stories pouring out over plates of our signature pancakes brought a smile to my face. It was a light amongst the clouds we faced. Let us do it. We can brainstorm ideas for the menu additions during that night too. Local food, local stories. As we spoke, the door swung open, and Jerry walked in. He looked at us, eyes widening with curiosity. "What's the plan, folks? I hope it's something worthy for a group of us to rally around." Lily clapped her hands, her excitement contagious. "We're thinking about starting a series of diner diaries where people can come and share their stories, what this place means to them." Jerry's face lit up. "Count me in. I've got some wild stories from when I was young, hanging around this joint. I've got to dig up some laughs from those old days." With a spark of collaboration in the air, ideas began to flow between us, each interaction planting seeds for our future. Word spread quickly through the community about Diner Diaries. Folks started pouring in to volunteer their time and stories, bringing with them old photos and cherished memories. But amidst our excitement, a knot of anxiety lingered. Nick's warning still echoed in my mind. As we worked tirelessly to gather momentum, I could sense storms brewing over our heads. On the night of the first Diner Diaries, the diner buzzed with energy. The smell of homemade pies wafted through the room, blending with laughter and stories being exchanged. Yet, every time the door swung open, I felt a rush of dread that it might be Nick, ready to unleash a wave of criticism or sabotage. As laughter filled the diner, I caught Lily's eye. She was soothingly chatting with an elderly couple who had been regulars for as long as I could remember. I wanted to walk over and share in that moment, but my heart was pounding. What if it wasn't enough? Suddenly, the door swung open again. The bright bell rang out, slicing through the ambience, carrying both hope and trepidation. The moment felt frozen in time. I turned to see who had entered, my hand clenched around my coffee cup. Was it friend or foe? Would this gathering be our chance to solidify our love for this place, or the day we crumbled under the pressure of change? As the crowd continued to murmur their laughter, I knew we stood on the edge of something beautiful or chaotic. The air crackled with potential, and the unknown. What awaited us would either seal our fate or galvanize our unity. But for now, only one question hummed through my mind: could our hearts truly conquer the storm on the horizon? I held my breath as I turned to face the figure. The door swung wide, and in stepped a familiar face, but not the one that had haunted my thoughts. It was Mrs. Patterson, the little old lady who had been the diner's unofficial historian for decades, her hair in a frail bun and eyes sparkling with a mischievous light. "Sorry I'm late," she called out, her voice warm like the coffee. "I brought some stories to share." A wave of relief surged through me. It was Mrs. Patterson, a thread of continuity in this tapestry of community. Behind her trailed a handful of regulars. They shuffled in, laughter trailing behind them, filling the room with nostalgia. I felt the tension in my shoulders begin to melt away. "Lily, let's make her the first storyteller," I said, my voice shaky with newfound energy. She grinned and nodded vigorously, ready to pull out a chair for Mrs. Patterson. "Gather around," Lily announced, her enthusiasm infectious. People shuffled closer. As I watched Mrs. Patterson settle into her seat, her smile softened the shadows in the room. She cleared her throat, only to be interrupted by Jerry, who hollered, "Let's hear it, Pat. Tell us about the time you won the pie-eating contest." The laughter echoed louder, and Mrs. Patterson chuckled, a sound like brittle leaves in the wind before she began. "Well, it all started back in '78. Her story unfolded, tales of laughter, joy, and connection floated through the diner. Each word stitched hearts together, and with every shared story, I felt that heavy weight lessen even more. My fears what Nick might do slowly faded into the background. There was only this moment, this bond, but as she spoke, another part of me drew back. What if someone spoke up with dissent? What if someone reminded us of the divide? My heart raced at the thought. Outside, rain began to patter against the windows, its steady rhythm a reminder of the storm still looming. Then the door swung open a second time, the bell chiming as if it heralded a significant event. I turned again, almost bracing myself. It was Nick. He walked in, drenched from the rain, seemingly unbothered. His expression was inscrutable, but I felt the air grow cold. Mrs. Patterson paused mid-story, her eyes darting toward the entrance, and the chatter around the diner quieted as if the entire world held its breath. Nick shifted his weight, taking in the scene with a mix of curiosity and irritation. I could see it in the way his lips tightened. "Nice party you got going here," he finally remarked, voice dripping with a sarcasm that felt sharp enough to cut. Tense silence gripped the diner. I felt all eyes on Nick, a mix of anxiety and determination bubbling inside me. It was that moment, that tiny spark of rebellion fighting against the storm growing in my chest. "Would you like to join us?" I asked, surprising myself with the steadiness in my voice. "We're sharing memories. You have plenty of those, don't you? He hesitated, the uncertainty flickering in his eyes. People around me shifted, their collective breath held, waiting for the punchline or the storm to unleash. Nick's gaze swept the room, landing on Lily, who looked at him defiantly, her chin lifted ever so slightly. That was my granddaughter, united but resolute. Is that right? He finally said, the storm clouds in his demeanor softening just a little. I could feel that, for better or worse, the energy had shifted. As Nick approached the table, blending into the gathering, I wondered if this was the moment everything changed. Could we weave his story into our community fabric, or would he tear it apart? I exchanged looks with Lily, seeing the hope in her eyes. Maybe this would be our chance to truly unite, or perhaps it would show us how frayed our connection remained. I took a deep breath, preparing myself for what could be the defining moment of our little diner's history. Would we rise together, or would the full force of the storm break down what we had just begun to mend? The answer hung in the air like a delicate thread, waiting for the first person to pull on it, unraveling everything or weaving a new beginning. But I was ready to find out. Don't forget that today is about us, she had written in her neat handwriting, with careful strokes that conveyed both love and sincerity. It felt like a lifeline in the chaos surrounding us. As Nick approached, I noticed the way he hovered on the edge of our circle, uncertainty skimming over his features. The air had turned thick, coiling tightly around us with each heartbeat. Mrs. Patterson, in her infinite wisdom, adjusted her glasses and smiled warmly at Nick, as if inviting him into a cherished family moment. Come sit, Nick, she called, her voice light as she gestured to the empty chair beside her. The familiar laughter of the diner had quieted, everyone inching closer, their eyes darting between Nick and Mrs. Patterson, eager to witness the unfolding story. With a deep breath, Nick pulled out the chair, the sound of wood scraping against the floor reverberating through the silence. I could see the tension in his jaw, the way his hands clasped together. He was still trying to gauge where he fit into this shared moment. What should I share? He asked, the hint of sarcasm still clinging to his voice, but it felt softer somehow. It was as if the storm inside him was starting to dissipate in the presence of the community. Start with what you remember, I suggested gently, anything that holds warmth for you. I met his gaze, hoping to bridge the divide that felt so stark just moments ago. We were all part of this fabric, his story was just as vital as any other. He hesitated again, eyes flicking to Lily as if seeking permission. The girl nodded, encouraging him with her warmth. Her smile lit up the room. She was the embodiment of hope, of unity, and of all the things that made life in this small diner worth cherishing. Okay. Nick's voice was low, almost meditative. I remember the summer fairs. The way the lights twinkled against the dark sky like stars. How we used to sneak over to the cotton candy stand when we thought no one was watching. Little by little, he began to weave memories of laughter and childhood mischief, stories punctuated by teasing remarks about the older folk who manned the booths. Laughter returned, filling the air with a lightness that made the tension subside even more. As Nick continued, the rain drummed steadily against the windows, creating a rhythmic backdrop to this newfound connection. I felt the warmth radiate through the room, it was contagious. Even those who weren't entirely sure of him began to nod and chuckle, memories resonating within their own histories, and then, something shifted. Nick turned serious, his face narrowing as he glanced at me. But I don't want to pretend it was perfect. There were good times, but there were also fights, arguments where we said things we didn't mean, and that hurt. The laughter dimmed again, replaced by a palpable recognition from everyone in the diner. Nick was right, life was messy. But sharing that mess was what made us human. I saw understanding dawn in many faces, as though we were all reflecting on our own tough moments. None of us are perfect, Nick, I replied softly, but we're here, aren't we? That's what matters. Hope washed over me like a gentle tide, feeling like it could wash away the past's bitterness. Then, Mrs. Patterson leaned in as if she had something significant to add. Sometimes, the cracks are where the light gets in, she said, her wise eyes sparkling. It felt like a universe of wisdom packed into a single sentence. Everyone absorbed it, as if it were a precious gem. Suddenly, a loud clap of thunder rumbled outside, shaking the windows. Everyone jumped slightly, then chuckled, breaking the solemn air that had settled around us. "Looks like the storm hasn't given up," Nick joked, a small smile creeping onto his face. The lightness returned, and so did the feeling of togetherness. But I sensed a deeper undercurrent, a realization all around that things had truly started to shift. As laughter spilled again, I leaned towards Lily, mirroring the look of hope I saw in her eyes. "This feels like a beginning, doesn't it?" I whispered to her, feeling a swell of emotions, a desire for us all to be closer, to heal together. The storm outside would pass, but the connection we forged here could be lasting. But as the laughter rang out, I couldn't help but wonder how long this newfound unity would last and what struggles would be waiting on the other side. Would we withstand the next storm, or would we find ourselves torn apart once more? The question lingered, echoing within the walls of the diner alongside the warmth of our shared stories, and the anticipation grew heavy in the air. "Forget that today is about us." The words echoed in my mind like a warning bell, reminding me of the significance of this moment. It was a gentle push against the chaos of life, a chance we had to embrace one another in a flurry of laughter, hope, and vulnerability. As Nick continued to share, I noticed the atmosphere shifting again. The small room felt like it was swelling, packed tight with emotions that dug deep into our shared experiences. Each story led us closer, revealing layers we had buried beneath time and hurt. Just then, Lily shifted beside me, breaking my train of thought. "You know, remembering is powerful," she said softly, her voice barely rising above the sound of rain pelting the diner's roof. "Sometimes it feels like it's all we have left." Her words sent a shiver down my spine, not because they scared me, but because they were filled with a truth so raw. I could see in her eyes that she understood. We often lived in the past, clinging tightly to memories, afraid of what the future might bring. The storm outside raged on, the wind whipping around the building with ferocity, yet inside this diner, we were cocooned in warmth. Nick had taken a breath, launching into more vivid memories. The floodgates were wide open. "Remember the Halloween when we all wore matching costumes?" he asked, that brave humor lacing his voice again. "We thought we were going to win the prize for Best Group Costume, until Mr. Hargrove showed up as a pirate ship." Laughter erupted once more, swelling into every corner of the diner. It was a sweet release that felt like sunshine breaking through the clouds. I witnessed connections being forged in the ripple of shared laughter, faces lighting up as they recalled their own versions of those past moments. But then, Nick turned serious again. It was like looking at a storm creeping in. "But those moments, they were also a cover-up, right?" He looked directly at Mrs. Patterson. "We didn't want to see what was really happening around us. The fights, the broken friendships. I pushed people away because I didn't want them to see the mess I was in. The truth is, those things cut deeper than fake smiles could hide." The room fell silent, the laughter painted over with a heavy brush of honesty. Chris, a regular from the diner, spoke up for the first time, his voice low and gravelly. "We've all been there at some point. Pretending everything's fine when it's not. It's easier to wear a mask." His words resonated, and I could feel a wave of understanding wash over the group. "Yes. Yes," Lily exclaimed, excitement alight in her eyes. "We can't let fear keep us from talking about the tough things. That's how we grow." And just like that, a spark ignited in Nick's eyes too. "Maybe, just maybe, we can find a way to share those scars instead of hiding them. I want to be honest with you all. Will you let me?" Mrs. Patterson smiled softly, her wisdom bridging the hearts in the room. "We're all here, Nick. We're family. Our hearts are stronger when we share, not just the happy moments but the tough ones too." The storm rattled the windows, yet inside, a new sense of openness bubbled. Nick had a look of determination on his face, and something inside me shifted too. Could transparency be the answer to healing the wounds we had all been carrying? As Nick prepared to dive deeper into stories that felt more raw, I glanced around the room. Everyone was leaning closer, eyes bright with anticipation, ready to listen and share, ready to face vulnerability together. But would we be strong enough to confront the shadows waiting in the corners of our hearts? As I pondered this, a sudden flash of lightning cut through the sky, illuminating the diner for just a heartbeat. "Let us brace ourselves," I thought. for whatever's next. With curiosity brewing, I felt a mix of determination and trepidation as Nick began to speak. Would we find the strength we needed, or would the storm inside us be too overwhelming to weather? The moment hung heavy in the air. The diner's atmosphere was electric, intuition crackling between us as our collective gaze born of vulnerability fell on Nick. He cleared his throat, preparing to unveil the layers of his truth, pieces of himself we hadn't yet seen. "I guess I've been waiting for the right moment to talk about my dad," he finally said. A hush enveloped the room, hearts aligning with his. "He wasn't well, let's just say he wasn't the man most people saw. He had his demons. And I think I spent years trying to dodge those shadows." His voice trembled but didn't waver. The rain tapped softly on the windows. I could see my friends leaning in even closer, eyes wide and intent. They all could feel it, that urge to unlock their own memories, to reveal their stories. I felt a rush of empathy for Nick. It was a battle, a war between past and present. "I remember," he continued, a distant look in his eyes, "the nights I'd hear him shouting at my mom from the living room. I was scared and sometimes angry. Angry at him for being angry, and angry at her for staying. I know it's not fair to think that way." He swallowed hard, the weight of his words heavy on his chest. "Nick, it's okay," Lily whispered. Her encouragement was a lifeline, anchoring him back to the group. "You're sharing your truth." The silence felt sacred. Nick nodded, exhaling slowly. "I didn't want to drag you all into my mess. But I've learned that carrying these memories alone is so much harder." Our eyes darted around the room, taking in the reflections around us. Mrs. Patterson reached out, clasping Nick's hand. "You're brave for sharing that, dear. We've all faced things like that, perhaps in different forms." Chris chimed in, his voice richer now, filled with warmth. "I had my own version of that," he admitted. "My dad wasn't a hard man, he was a quiet one, too quiet. I think those silences can tear a person up just as much as screaming." There was a silence before my heart raced as I realized that we were sharing more than stories now, we were sharing truths that could heal us. Each confession chipped away at the walls around us, gently dismantling our defenses, urging us to connect on a level we hadn't dared to before. Then, it happened. A flash of inspiration sparked in Lily's eyes. What if we had a safe space? Here, in this diner? A space where we can come together regularly to share what weighs on our hearts, share our truths, our struggles, and even our triumphs. The room burst into murmurs of agreement, weaving a tapestry of hope that intertwined us all together. I felt a smile inching across my face, relief flowing through me. Perhaps we had been waiting for a moment like this all along, a chance to break the cycle of silence. "Let's call it open table," Nick suggested, his tone brightening. He looked around the room, gathers forming in his eyes. "It'll be our space, our chance to grow together, learn from one another, and heal." A chorus of affirmations followed, and for the first time in what felt like ages, I felt the heaviness in my chest lift. There was a newness in the air, a promise flickering like the lights above us. But even as we basked in the hope surrounding us, a nagging worry pulsed in the back of my mind. Would we be able to hold on to this commitment when life threw us its inevitable curveballs? As if reading my thoughts, Nick turned serious once again. "The truth is, it won't always be easy. Some days will be tougher than others. The question is, are we ready for that?" That question hung in the air, challenging us to think beyond the moment, to reach deep into the corners of our hearts. I felt a tingle of uncertainty mingling with excitement. What awaited us at the next open table? Would we find the courage to face our deepest fears together, or would the weight of our pasts once more become too heavy to bear? Are we ready for that? The question lingered. It was the kind of question that could pierce through our bubble of hope and could just as easily shatter it. We all exchanged glances, the gravity of it settling between us like thick fog. "I hope so," I finally said, my voice unsteady. "We need this, but we also have to be real about what it means." Nick nodded. "It's like putting on a new pair of shoes. They look good, but they take time to break in." The analogy made me chuckle quietly, easing some tension. Everyone else smiled too, but it was a fragile smile, the kind that held deeper fears. What would these new shoes feel like when the pain of breaking them turned unbearable? Lily leaned forward, her expression sincere. I think by being honest about our pasts, we can help each other. Even when it gets hard. Like I didn't even tell you guys about my brother. He's been gone for years. I just couldn't bear to say it. The honesty in her voice struck a chord. It was the kind of sincerity that opened the floodgates. Chris exchanged a look with me, as if to say, we've all got our battles. Maybe we should spend some time talking about our struggles at the next open table, I suggested, my heart racing slightly as I spoke the words. Let us get it all out in the open, even the stuff we don't want to face. I like that, said Nick. Each of us has something heavy we've been carrying. If we shed some of it, maybe it won't feel so big anymore. In that moment, I felt a warmth growing within me. A flicker of hope was igniting, passing through each of us. What if we did a sharing circle? I said, cautious yet excited. We could each take a turn. Just speak freely and honestly. The smiles around the table brightened, and they seemed to feel it too, the sense of possibility. I think I could open up about my brother, Lily said quietly. But I need your support. Always, Nick said, reaching for her hand. We're in this together. With each passing moment, I found myself longing for the next gathering more and more. It felt like a lifeline was being extended, one that would allow us to bolster each other as we ventured into the tricky waters of our memories. But in the pit of my stomach, anxiety stirred. Would this space hold up in hard times? Would we flinch away when our truths got too messy? Just then, the door of the diner swung open, spilling chilly night air and a chilling realization. Life outside didn't stop just because we had our hopes as shields. It roared and thrummed, waiting for the moment to catch us off guard. Are you all up for this? I asked again, this time more firmly. Because it's going to require all of us, bare and unadulterated. Can we do that? The room paused, filled with palpable possibility. Then, almost in unison, they murmured affirmations, holding each other's gazes. A silent agreement to lean in to welcome vulnerabilities together. Here's to facing the truths then, Nick said, raising a cup of coffee as if it were a toast. The moment felt monumental, like the birth of something transformative. But as we celebrated this small victory, a shadow drifted through my mind. Would it be enough to carry us through when life attempted to tear us apart again? As we wrapped up for the night, my heart danced between excitement and fear. Would we really become the support we needed? And would anyone be brave enough to raise their voice first at the next open table? All I could do was hope that when the moment came, we'd be ready. What awaited us then felt daunting, like the undiscovered roads of our hidden pasts, whispering at the edges of our courage. The next week felt electric as we prepared for the first official open table event. The diner buzzed with anticipation, the air thick with hope and trepidation. A storm brewed outside, but inside, we were determined to talk about the unseen battles we carried. I brewed pot after pot of coffee, each swirl a reminder of the warmth we were trying to create. When the door swung open, I felt a thrill run through me. Regulars piled in, all sharing smiles and nods of encouragement. As I greeted Jerry and Mrs. Patterson, I could see it in their eyes, the longing to share, to connect, to open up old wounds in the light of our communal love. Lily arrived a little later, her face lit up like it had been splashed with sunshine. I've been thinking about what I want to share, she said, her voice steady yet carrying an undercurrent of vulnerability. I want to talk about my brother. This is our space, right? We can be honest. Her bravery washed over me like a soft summer rain. Absolutely, sweetheart, I said, feeling immense pride pushing through the fear that had taken residency in my heart. As the clock ticked closer to the gathering, the familiar faces filled the booths, laughter breaking up the tension that had hung like dark clouds a week before. When I glanced around, I was reminded of how much love and history these walls held. At last, it was time. I stood up, my throat a bit dry as I tapped my coffee cup, signaling for attention. Welcome, everyone, to Open Table. Tonight, we're here to begin something new. A space where we can share our truths, our struggles, and find a way to support one another like family. As I paused, I noticed the crowd hang on my words, anticipation peaked, hearts open. Why don't we start by sharing our thoughts, just a little bit about what brings us here tonight? I encouraged, scanning the room for who might want to take the first leap. Nick shifted in his seat, glancing around nervously. "I'll go," he said, his voice a little shaky, but determination seeped through. He took a deep breath, reaching for vulnerability. "I want to talk about my dad. I realize now how those memories don't just weigh me down, they also shape who I am." With each confession, a wave of bravery cascaded through the room. As stories began to flow, a connective bond strengthened. Jerry spoke about the loss of his wife, the love still vivid but buried beneath years of mourning. I saw Mrs. Patterson's eyes glisten as she joined in, recounting a story of her own lost love and how those early challenges still informed her strength today. And then, it was Lily's turn. She radiated courage, stepping into the center like a beam of light breaking through the clouds. "I've held on to my brother's memory like a lifeboat. He passed away years ago, and it's felt so lonely without him. I used to think talking about it would hurt too much, but I realize now that sharing it is how we keep his spirit alive." Her voice trembled with emotion, and I saw tears shimmering in the eyes of many, mine included. The room grew heavy with empathy. We weren't just sharing, we were living the vulnerability, and every word became a thread stitching us together. The night rolled on with stories echoing in rhythm, a melody of laughter mixed with sobs, pain tangled with joy. It wasn't always easy, but the fear of unraveling gave way to the freedom of connection. As the hour grew late, I looked around, astonished at the transformation within our diner. Faces that had once been clouded with tension now glowed with acceptance. Before closing the night, I felt compelled to say a few words. Thank you, everyone. Not just for showing up but for being honest. Our diner has always been a family, a beacon, and tonight, we birthed something real. This isn't just a shared space, it's a foundation on which we can build, heal, and grow together. Lily beamed next to me, knowing that we were carving a way forward. As people said their goodbyes, there were hugs and embraces that lingered a little longer, smiles exchanged like promises, yet, as I wiped down the counter, a feeling washed over me like a reminder. The storm raging outside was still there, a tangible reminder of what lay ahead. I had no certainty about the challenges we would face, but I knew one thing: we weren't alone anymore. United, we could weather any storm. And as the bell rang with each departing guest, I felt hope coursing through me, a sweet, stubborn hope that said together, we were ready. So here we stood, a family forged not just by history but by shared truth, ready to face whatever change lay ahead. If you feel the same, if you believe in the power of community, then you need to subscribe now. This is the moment to show your support. Leave a like right now to help the algorithm and spread our message. Comment how you feel about our journey, and share this video instantly with at least 5 friends who need to witness the beauty of transformation. Don't wait not even one more second to join this movement. Let us build this community together.